We stay on that story. The Russian president is seeking to build a strategic partnership with Southeast Asia as Vladimir Putin hosts ASEAN leaders in Kazan. Bloc leaders in Russia to push deeper economic and strategic ties, pledging to step up energy cooperation in their joint statement. Mr. Putin also committing continued food and energy supplies to the bloc. ASEAN Chair and Philippine President Ferdinand Jr. also urging stronger cooperation on maritime security, stressing that regional stability is a shared responsibility.
In an era of deepening geopolitical uncertainty, the value of steady political and security engagement between ASEAN and Russia cannot be overstated. Transnational threats such as terrorism, illicit trafficking, cybercrime, and online scams do not respect borders, and neither can our responses. We must strengthen practical cooperation on maritime security and counter-terrorism, reinforce our collective resilience in cyberspace, and develop the institutional habits of anticipation rather than mere reaction.
Dasha Chernyshova reports for CNA Live from Moscow. Dasha, Strait of Hormuz, that crisis there, reminding countries, certainly in ASEAN, of the need for energy security. So this joint statement on long-term energy cooperation, how significant is that?
Well, first of all, we have to keep in mind that from the words of the Russian president, all of the ASEAN countries have welcomed the signing of the memorandum between the United States and Iran, saying that it is of paramount importance for the energy security and of paramount importance for stabilizing prices for energy resources, because that will be leaving the situation more stable in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, when we go back to this document, from Moscow's perspective, it is important and very significant because of ASEAN members' efforts to diversify their energy security by having multiple sources of energy supplies. And from these documents, we understand cooperation cooperation in traditional energy sectors, including natural gas and LNG, has been outlined. But also they are talking about more of the renewable energy development and broader energy transition. And obviously, it is important because Russia is also looking to make sure that it has more energy markets for its energy resources. But when we talk about the implementation steps, this is when the situation gets a bit more tricky, because implementation of such large-scale energy projects requires a lot of investment for the infrastructure. So this is one of the issues that has to have some clear, concrete steps when it comes to the implementation. We also talk about regulatory issues here. The ASEAN countries do not have the common vision when it comes to their needs, and obviously regulation is another issue that has to be resolved. So when it comes to the implementation, it will still have to go through the test of reality.
Dasha, in which case, talking about implementation of any energy security policy, that would give leaders, certainly ASEAN and Russia, much more that they can discuss today.
That's right. And the sides are discussing about multiple things where they can be working more together. For Russia, what is important is that the trade is growing with the Asian countries. ASEAN members are also interested in not just energy resources from Russia. They are talking about food security, which is also very high on the agenda. And when we talk about trade, we also talk about the way this trade is conducted. So the Russian side is underlining the need of the transition of these trade flows to national currencies. Russia has been transitioning into that with other partners, but now this is for the ASEAN countries. We also understand that Moscow is prepared to increase its export for the products with value-added price, including fertilizers, including medication. So in that sense, we understand the sides are talking about more ways from which they can be cooperating. And these discussions in the city of Kazan have also involved the representative of the business community. So that is something that is adding value to this host process, because if you have the business representatives, they can certainly talk about how they will be face-to-face implementing these political resolutions.
Oh, thanks. Dasha Chernyshova, they're looking at this summit in Kazan. Vladimir Putin, of course, hosting that for ASEAN leaders.